Hey everyone, welcome back to Learn Tech Now CCBP 4.0. If you are someone who wants to make beautiful modern websites, today's session is going to be super helpful. We are diving into the basics of CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. And trust me, once you understand CSS, web design starts to feel like magic. Understanding CSS is a must for anyone who wants to build modern, responsive websites. Whether you are creating your first portfolio or aiming to become a front end developer, CSS is a core skill. In this video, we will cover what is CSS, how it works with HTML, different ways to add CSS, basic syntax and selectors, and live example to see it all in action. Here's what we are going to cover in today's introduction to CSS. First, what a CSS rule actually looks like. Then we will cover key terms like selector, property and value. Then we will see some common CSS properties like text align. Then we will see by using div as a container and adding classes. Next, we are going to see how to center your heading, paragraph and button horizontally on a web page. Here's a visual to help you understand. On the left, we see the elements not aligned. Everything is leaning to the left. On the right, after applying some simple CSS rule set, everything is centered beautifully. The heading, the paragraph. What is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. While HTML gives a web page structure like headings, paragraphs, and images, CSS is what controls how that content looks. It styles the colors, fonts, layout, spacing, animations, basically everything visual. Think of HTML as a skeleton and CSS as the clothes, makeup, and overall styling that make the web page visually appealing. To center horizontally inside the rule set, we will use this CSS rule set, which is selector, property, and value. We have to first decide a suitable name for the selector and then use it. For example, h-center. Here dash means hyphen, so it will be h-center, horizontal-center, horizontal center, horizontal underscore center, horizontal center, etc. If you want, you can create another suitable selector name for this. Let me break this down for you step by step. Step 1, Selector. We start with something called a selector. In this example, we have h-center. This means we are selecting all the elements in our HTML that have a class name h-center. Reminder, in CSS, a dot before name means it's a class selector. Step 2, Property. Inside the curly braces, we write the property we want to apply. Here it is, text-align. This property is used to align text inside an element like headings, paragraphs. Step 3, Value. Then we give that property a value. In this case, the value is center. Putting it together, dot h hyphen center curly brace text align center, then closing curly brace. When using a different code editor, make sure to create a new file with the .css extension in your editor. Then you can start writing your CSS rule set inside that file. Since I am using the CCBP platform, the CSS file is already provided, so I don't need to create a separate .css file. I can directly start writing my CSS code. Putting it together, dot h dash means hyphen center curly brace enter text align center. This means for any elements with the class h-center, align the text to the center. Recap slide dot h hyphen center selector targets elements text hyphen align property what you want to do center value how you want it. This is the building blocks of CSS styling, and this rule is just the beginning. With the help of attributes, we can combine HTML and CSS. Attributes provide additional information about the HTML element. For example, color, text, shape, underlines, etc. Understanding an HTML element. Alright, let's start by looking at a basic HTML element. Here we have something like this. Now, let's break this down. The whole thing is called an HTML element. It starts with a start tag. Inside that start tag, we have an attribute written as attribute value. Next, we have the content that appears on the web page. And finally, we close it with an end tag. Let's dive deeper into this attribute. Its syntax goes like this. Attribute is equals to value. Here, attribute is the name of the attribute, like class, ID or href. Value is the value assigned to that attribute. You must put the value inside double quotes. Class attribute. Let's see a real example using the class attribute. Check this out. Attributes are used to provide additional information about an HTML, and they are always defined in the start tag. Let's dive deeper into this attribute. Its syntax goes like this. Attribute is equals to value. Here, attribute is the name of the attribute, like class, ID or href. Value is the value assigned to that attribute. You must put the value inside double quotes. Class attribute. Let's see a real example using the class attribute. Check this out. To make the heading and paragraph center, we need to use the same selector name in the HTML file. If we don't do that, the content won't be centered. So we should use it like this. What's happening here? H1 is the element used for the main heading. Class is equals to double inverted comma h hyphen center is the attribute where class is the name of the attribute and h hyphen center is the value. The word tourism is the content that will displayed on the page and slash h1 is the end tag. So this element is saying make the word tourism a big heading and apply the CSS class called h-center to style it, maybe to center it on the page. Recap. To quickly recap, HTML elements are made of tags. Attributes live in the start tag. They follow the format name is equals to double inverted comma value and they help control how elements behave or appear. Now we are going to look at how to add all the basic HTML elements at once, a main heading, a paragraph and a button inside the body tag. Before diving in, first we are going to learn a basic but super important concept in web development, which is wrapping and containers in HTML and CSS. Let's start with the definition. What is wrapping? Wrapping means grouping all the required elements in one place. This helps organize your code and makes your layout cleaner and more manageable. Second, what is a container? To wrap or group all those elements together, we use something called a container element. And the most commonly used container in HTML is the div tag. So basically, if you have heading, paragraphs or buttons that belong together, you can wrap them inside a div. This makes styling and positioning those elements easier with CSS. Let's take a look at this diagram. Here we got a simple HTML elements div, other element, div. This is what we call an element. An element is made up of three main parts. First, start tag, second, content, and third, end tag. Here, start tag is less than div greater than is the start tag. Then other element is the content. This can be text, images or even other elements. End tag. Together this forms a complete HTML element. Adding a div element. Now let's talk about using the div tag inside the body of our HTML document. The div tag is a generic container. We use it to group other elements and apply styles or layouts. As shown here, we place the div tag inside the body tag and notice the straight line, that is indentation. This is a standard practices in web development. Identifying your code helps keep it neat and readable. This becomes especially important when your HTML gets more complex. Alright, now let's talk about attributes. They give extra information about an element. Look at this example. Div class is equals to double inverted comma, h hyphen center, content, div. Here's what going on. Div is the start tag, class is equals to h hyphen center is an attribute, and in that class is the name of the attribute and h hyphen center is the value. Then content is what inside the element. Then last is the end tag. Attribute like class help us connect these HTML elements with CSS style later on. Super powerful. So the final output is this. Recap. To recap, an HTML element is equals to start tag plus content plus end tag. You can nest elements inside others. Use attributes to add meaning or style. Keep your code clean with proper indentations. In the next video, we will see Introduction to CSS Part 2. So stay tuned and don't forget to like and subscribe if you are learning something new.